Setting expectations and KPIs brought to you by Telguard. My name is Chris Peterson, and I am the president and owner of a company called Vector Firm. And what we do is we help security companies with their sales and marketing. We do sales and marketing, consulting, and training. And today we're going to talk about setting expectations and key performance indicators. Now I know some of you in here may be here not necessarily just to set KPIs for your sales team. And that's okay. Just understand that I'm coming from that perspective. A lot of the ideas and a lot of the philosophies you'll be able to apply in operations and service and in other parts of your world. But this is built around sales with the understanding that, hey, some of these folks may want to take this to other departments. All right, I bet you will not hear this in any other session. I want you to go to your phones or your tablets and get online. Go to slido.com. Okay, don't worry about it. Just as long as you're on slido.com, because when we come to asking the question, that number will come up again. So what this is a tool, if you haven't used it before, that gets you to interact. I'll ask a poll question, and you'll be able to answer, and we'll be able to see everybody's answers up here. Once upon a time, a family, somewhat newlyweds, were getting ready for their Christmas Eve dinner of pot roast. This is the 4th year that the couple was together, and the husband made the pot roast. And what he would do is he would chop off the front of the pot roast and chop off the back of the pot roast and put it in the oven. And the wife never understood why. It came out real juicy. So on this particular Christmas Eve, she said, "So why do you do that? Does it make it juicier? Why do you cut off the front and the back?" He says, "I don't know. It's what my mom always did." "Well, let's call her." So they called his mom. And she said, "I don't know, that's what your grandmother always did." So they called the grandmother, got the grandmother on the line. "Hey, Mom said that you used to cut the front and the back off the pot roast before you put it in the oven. Why did you do that? Is that a secret recipe?" She said, "No, our oven was too small." Once upon a time, we used to measure activity by salespeople in certain ways. You had to have 3 times your quota on the street. If not, man, you were a failure. You need to knock on 100 doors to get 5 appointments to get 1 sale. And every Friday by 4 o'clock, I want your weekly sales call turned in. Once upon a time, this is how we did things. I have a feeling a lot of you still do those things. So that's what we're going to talk about today, setting expectations and key performance indicators in the 2020s. First, we're going to talk about defining expectations, and we're going to move into metrics that matter. Metrics that really matter to your sales professionals and how they're going to drive and grow business in your organization, and calculating the right goals to those metrics. So just for terminology purposes, what I mean by goals is the actual number that they need to reach. A metric is something that you measure like dollar amount quoted, right? A goal is $1 million. That's your goal. All right. I'm saying that because this terminology is intermixed and depends on who you're talking to. Tracking and adjusting. It's great to set goals. A lot of times they're forgotten by January 7th. How do you track? How do you work with your group? And then subjective and fun goals. And then finally, we're going to talk about an action item for you to take home and actually put into practice as soon as you can. All right. Define your expectations. I want to talk about best practices of defining expectations for salespeople. Number one, don't feel like these expectations are only dollar-driven. They're salespeople, but they're also part of your organization. They're also human beings. A lot of people say, "I want a salesperson who's coin-operated." Well, I don't. I want a salesperson that has some ethics. He's going to work hard. Don't be afraid to set expectations back to the core values of the business. Sales performance, obviously. We want to understand new business, new accounts. I love talking with, I wrote an article for Security Business back right before the pandemic, September of 2019. And I thought I was going to get a bunch of hate mail. I didn't. Well, maybe I had a bunch of readers that hated it, but they didn't contact me. I had a lot of folks reach out to me and thought it was positive. And essentially what the article was you might be growing, but you're not really that good. We just happen to be hanging a sign that we're in business and we're in the security industry. but are you grabbing market share? Are you finding new business? There are a lot of salespeople out there with Mercedes in the garage. When's the last time they went out and found a new customer? That needs to be part of the expectations. That comes down, it's not all your fault, it's not all leadership's fault, but it comes down to leaders not setting those expectations. Because as long as they're hitting their quota, we're paying the bills, we're growing, it's fantastic. Are you grabbing market share? Because this wave is going to slow down. It's just mathematics, it's physics, it's what happens. When the wave slows down, is your company in the habit of finding new customers? Or are they in the habit of simply taking orders from your current customers? So an expectation needs to be loud and clear that it's not just about generating $5 million of business a year. Yeah, you've been here for 14 years. Yeah, you're a great performer. Your customers love you, but at least 20% of your business needs to come from new accounts, or whatever that number is. That expectation needs to be set, and it needs to be followed up upon. Attitude and work ethic. What if you have a performer that's just doing a fantastic job? They just don't really try that hard, right? Maybe they got a couple accounts and they're just knocking it out of the park. They don't really work. Their attitude's just not really there because they know that they walk on water. They're not going to let me go. How do you handle that? And I love one of the answers. It was from a gentleman named Sean Castillo. He said, this is where leadership matters. This is where we've got to make a difference. And now those expectations need to be communicated from leadership down, that your attitude, I don't care how good you are, your attitude matters, your work ethic matters. But that expectation needs to be set before goal number one is even set. And then communication, internal and external. Internally, here's how we communicate. I know you're in sales, I know you're a big shot, I know you're generating a lot of business for this company, but when somebody from operations calls you twice in 2 days, that's not acceptable. The internal and external communication has to be, and those are two separate things, by the way, those expectations. So quite a few examples here. Tying it back to the core, let's say one of your core values is professionalism. You're going to practice the utmost professionalism in every encounter. All right, the expectation is that every act you perform is full of professionalism. It's done with complete 100% professionalism. You're never late, you're dressed properly, you're polite. You're going to be a professional. Sales, you're going to close $2 million of sales every year. That's it. New business, you're going to identify and propose businesses with 25 new clients this year. Maybe it's 150, maybe it's 6. It all depends on your marketplace and who it is. Are they seasoned? I work with a client up in the upper Midwest, and their owner was so excited because we got one of their salespeople that's been there since the mid-'80s, who does a pretty good job, but hasn't found a new customer since the late '80s. And all we did was identify 4 municipalities for him to go pursue, because he's in the municipality world. That was it, just 4 prospects. That's it, just 4. And guess what he did? Because for the last 30 years, since people have been telling him, you got a prospect, he's just thinking of knocking on 50 doors a day. No, how about this? Go after 4. Right? So it depends on who they are, it depends on what you need, but make sure you're understanding and they understand what that expectation is. We always deliver 100% effort, attitude, and then communication. All calls will be returned same day. That's what's expected of us. All right, that's setting the expectations. And we do it's not just our industry. I think a lot of organizations do a poor job here because we hire salespeople and we think you're supposed to just go sell. So we do a poor job of setting the expectations for them. But we've got to communicate these to them. It's not just about a sales number. It's about many other things. All right, metrics that matter. What are you measuring? How much are you measuring? Does it really matter? The last 2 words in this 3-word statement is what matters. It's a great statement that y'all have heard before, but it applies nicely here. You may get to the very top of the ladder and then find out you're leaning on the wrong wall. You might be chasing all kinds of metrics. Someone might be killing it, and year after year they're failing on their sales numbers. So how do you know that you're on the right wall? It's real simple, really. If a metric leads directly to sales success, and it also helps your business to stay in balance, then it's the right metric. What I mean by that is, obviously, if it leads directly to sales success, that's important. But if it leads to sales success where you're getting no gross profit margin, if you're working with customers that you don't want to work with, if you're not generating recurring revenue with the capital sale, whatever it might be, if it's not keeping your company in the balance you want to be, then it's not a metric you should be measuring. So metrics that matter. Here's some best practices, some cardinal rules I go. 5 or less. And I'll tell you what's better than 5, 4. If you can get it down to 3, it's fantastic. Folks, here's the deal. You hit these 3 metrics, you're going to succeed. That's kind of tough. So that's why I put it up to 5. If you get more than 5, you're just diluting the message. There's no reason to have more than 5 metrics that lead to sales success. Some of the ones that I recommend, obviously quotes, but not just dollars, but quantity out there. Someone might have $8 million of quotes out there, but one of them is 7.2 million. We want to know how many they're doing. Your metric should look at the early part of the process, the mid part, as well as the outcome. So it's not just about closing business. It's not just about quoting business. It could be about more earlier stages of that too. Year to date and month to date is very important. Don't let somebody slide because they had a fantastic first quarter, but they haven't done anything since February. Year to date and month to date, very important. And something I call a performance index. I think this should be one of your 5 because it keeps you and your salespeople, it really helps you understand the health of each person's business. What a performance index is, and you all have experienced this, whether you've experienced this as a sales professional or whether you've experienced it as an owner or an executive. You have a out of the park, April, May, right? Let's say the quota of a salesperson is 1.2 million. They do 400,000 in April, 700,000 in May. I mean, whoa, they're about at their quota just in those 2 months, right? And then all of a sudden, June, nothing. July, they got a little bit of repeat business, maybe $20,000, right? It's like this. As a service business, how do you manage that? That's difficult. Where are you going to find the resources for that? You want to fire the person, right? But wait a minute, they just did 1.1 million in a couple months. They're going to end up doing over 200 million or 2 million for the year. Now, the opposite extreme, boy, I've got somebody who, I got to fire them because they haven't closed anything in a few months. But if you look at their pipeline, they've got $4 million sitting there in the pipeline. It's going to close over the next few months. So it's like this. How do you determine the health of somebody's performance? Basically, take the last 90 days of sales and the next 90 days of factored pipeline and add it up. It's real easy. If you use, Tracy and Sam are back there, if you use We Estimate, it's easy. In fact, I do it for 2 of your clients and our clients. Not to say your system's hard, but they actually pay us to take it out because they don't want, the owners don't want to get into it. So we use that data though, Tracy, to create a performance index of last 90 days plus the pipeline for the next 90 days. And what it does is it gives you a number that should be right around half of the annual quota. So what have you done for me lately, and what are you going to do for me? That really measures the health of your business, and it helps you keep sane, it helps your salespeople keep churning. The reason they get into this is because they start panicking and they start doing a ton of prospecting work, a ton of quote work, and all of a sudden they got 1 million quotes out there, and then they try to close it, and then they try to service it, and then they don't do any quotes for it. It's like this, their whole career. But if they consistently look at an index like this, then you're going to realize, well, they're doing okay or they're not doing okay, and you're going to push and pull whenever it really makes sense. So this is how it could look, right? Orange represents closed sales. And I don't think I'm far off from what reality is for a lot of salespeople. It's just the way it is. Yellow represents quoted data or quoted business. This is what a performance index looks like. So you say it should be around, you need to be around $600,000. As long as you stay above that, I'm not going to yell at you. As long as you stay above that, I'm not going to go. As long as if you're below that though, guess what? We're having trouble. But I just closed $200,000 last week. Yeah. Your performance index at 450. You haven't quoted anything since your birthday last year. I love this metric. I think it should be one of your 5. I've got one for my business. It's not necessarily 90 days, 90 days, but it allows me to sleep at night. And it also allows me not to go out and buy the Lamborghini, because I know I'm never feeling too good and I'm never feeling too bad, because I know exactly where the health of the business is. Does that make sense? Okay, I didn't want to, I hesitated in sharing that in a forum like this because it's just me blabbing up here instead of sitting down and going through some examples with you. All right, I want you to calculate the right goals per salesperson. This goes back to our pot roast example with the Christmas Eve. The 3 times quota on the street, this is just a good analogy that I like. That's kind of like everybody wears the same size suit. If you just say, look, I want you to have, whatever your quota is, you need to have 3 times that out on the street. Some people are going to fit in that suit, some aren't. Most aren't, because it's just, I believe that number came from some sales manager in Kansas City in 1966 that worked for Sonatrol. And it caught on, and 2021, people are still doing it. It might work, might not. If you calculate it for your whole team, you get a little bit better. You get something off the shelf at Brooks Brothers, looks okay. What we want though is we want that perfectly, not tailored, the perfectly designed and built suit for each person based on their historic data. You've got some people that are really good at activity at the early stages of sales. They're really good at finding opportunities, and they never met anybody that they wouldn't quote. They don't qualify. They just quote like crazy. And their close ratio is shorter, or I'm sorry, lower. And you got others that really go through, they target who they're going to pursue, they qualify before they do a quote. Their close ratio is a lot higher, but they're going to have less quotes. We want to understand this type in each person and calculate that, because this is where we want to be. We want to be each person having different goals. Now, before I move forward, I don't mean each person has different metrics. So if you decide that you're going to measure quoted dollars, number of quotes, and a performance index, okay, those 3 things, then everyone should be measured on these 3 things. But if everyone has the same quota, it's only coincidence if everyone has the same quote goal or the same quote quantity goal and the same performance index goal. Each one will have different goals for those metrics. Does that make sense? Not really. Okay. By the way I know no one's going to say no. I've done this long enough. So if I don't get enough nods, I know that it doesn't make sense. So you might have different goals for each person, but each person is measured on the same things, the same metrics. So you should measure everybody on, and I'm making this up, quoted dollars, number of quotes, and the performance index. Everyone gets measured on those 3 things. But Jake might have a goal, an annual quote goal of 4 million. Michelle might have one of 2.5 million. And Lester might have one of 800,000. Okay? That's what I mean by it. All right, best practices of this. Use the last 12 months. I'm getting really in textbook. When I was putting this together, this is from some other material that we have, I was thinking, gosh, I hope this isn't before lunch, because I'm getting, and it is before lunch, I'm getting very textbook. So I want you to follow along, because it makes sense, but it's just not that emotionally motivating. The last 12 months of data is sufficient. You don't have to go look back at the last 5 years of this person. Look, if someone just started 6 months ago, start collecting their data to see what makes sense. Average transaction size. A lot of people, now these are all pieces of data that I'm going to show you later that you're going to have to use. Average transaction size, this is important. Do not look at the quotes. to get the average transaction size. Look at the closed sales. I don't care what people quote. I care what people actually buy. Does that make sense? Okay, because you may have people like that person I mentioned earlier that's just quoting everybody. They may do a ton of quotes that are high, and the average transaction size is really significantly lower. This is important also. When you're calculating somebody's close ratio, okay, you take the number of closed sales, number of transactions, and divide it by the number of quotes. This is not by dollars. You don't say, well, she closed 1.3 million and she quoted 5.2 million. She got 25% close it. No. It's not by dollars because the huge sales really skew that number. It's the number of transactions. Well, actually, she closed 90 sales and she did 240 quotes. I don't know what that is actually. It's like 35%. So make sure it's number of transactions when you are calculating the ratio, the closing ratio. It's number of transactions, number of quotes. Make sense? All right. You guys are glad you stretched and did arm rolls earlier, aren't you? Okay, update that calculator input annually. It's going to change. It's going to change every day. But it's like the person that's trying to lose weight. Don't get on a scale every hour. It's going to drive yourself crazy. Just worry about update this once a year. Once a year for each person. Don't make it a huge. Now, if they just started, maybe after the first year, maybe you do it every 6 months or so, but on an ongoing basis, yearly is fine. It's okay to delete the outliers. It is. If the person closed an order that's $2 million and they've never sold more than one, well, delete that outlier because that's just going to skew your numbers. All right, so who's ready for some even more fun right now? We're going to open up a spreadsheet and I'm going to show you how to calculate these things. What we're going to do is we're going to fill in these white cells, and you're going to end up seeing how this all rolls out. So who wants to give me an example? I'm just going to ask you these questions, and we're going to roll through these. Whoever does, I'll give you a $5 Starbucks card. With that $5 card and $6 more, you can get medium coffee. Who's in? Oh, perfect. What's your name? Lucas. Okay, Lucas, help me out here. We're going to put a calculator input here. Just think of a salesperson and an average salesperson, not some poor performer or crazy success. Total sales in the last 12 months that one of your sales people have done.
Total sales number, $1 million.
All right, $1 million. All right. How much do you think they quoted in the last 12 months? 4 million. Okay. And of that 4 million, is that 4 or 40? All right. Of that 4 million, of the 1 million, how many sales transactions? Lucas, I'm screwing up here, man. How many quotes did they do? That's why it wasn't dollars. How many quotes in general did they do? Meaning how many, of the 4 million, how many quotes did they do to get that 4 million? No, did they put it out there?
Probably 25 a month.
25 a month, so that's 300. All right, and now, how many transactions did they have to hit the $1 million? How many did they close? 12 months, 144. Okay, here's what we got. This person's close ratio is 48%. Their average transaction size is $6,944. What's that, Lucas, what's that person's annual quota? $1.5 million. Oh. All right. So in order for this person, because of the metrics you gave me, this person closed, man or woman? He closed He closed $1 million in the last 12 months. He did 300 quotes, and he closed 144 of those quotes. Because of those numbers, in order to hit 1.5 million on an annual basis, he's going to have to do 450 quotes. The quotes are going to have to add up to $3,125,000, and then monthly, he's going to have to do 38 quotes a month that add up to about $260,000 a month. Now, here's the beauty of this, what I love about it, and this is where seriously, Tracy, I should show you this one time. I go into your dashboard, your ERG, and I put this, the only time I use my reading glasses all week, but I can't see here. I should use them all. But I go in and I take the data and I put it in there, and it works out. So you can see, all right, so let's say it's October, it's the end of September, right? So Lucas, how much do you think, we're moving forward to next October 4th, 5th, okay? How much do you think this person has sold next October 5th? By next January through then? You think he's done $1.5 million already, huh? No, from January 1 to, so in those 9 months. $1 million. One more zero, is that right? There we go. And how many quotes has he done? He's supposed to do 450. How many do you think he's done through next year? Your vision casting, this is 350. How much do you think he's quoted? Two and a half. And then how much do you think they quoted this month? 100 grand, 120? 275. He's had some big quotes. Okay. If you follow the best practices, you can build a calculator real easily. You don't need to be an Excel expert. But doing the scorecard below, this is what really matters, because you can go in on a weekly basis, and really, it takes me, I probably shouldn't do this, but I do it anyway because I enjoy it. I'm a numbers geek. It takes me 10 minutes to do 6 salespeople for this one team I was talking about with We Estimate. I go in, boom, 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 and now every week you got data. Okay, here's where you are for the year. You're supposed to be 75% of the way through the year because we're at October 5th. You're only, all right, you're 67%, you're a little bit behind. Quote quantity, you're ahead. Annual quotes, you're okay. This month, you really have, in the last 30 days, you're really behind on quotes. Yeah, but not for free. You get 2 Starbucks cards. How's that? All right, so for recurring revenue, there are some things I want to make sure that, and you guys are really good at recurring revenue. I understand that. But I want to make sure that we hit some of these best practices. There's 3 things I like to talk about when I work with the system integrators. I'm moving from being heavily project-oriented to selling recurring revenue. Number 1, track a dollar goal, not percentage of its total sales. You know, I love when people say, well, we got 18% of our total sales this year was RMR. I want to go to 25% next year. Okay, that's great. Just lower your total sales. All right, if you have a bad year, you're gonna get to where you want to be. You want to make a total, measure it by dollars. My recurring revenue next year is going to go from $600,000 to $900,000, not from 18 to 25% of my revenue. Does that make sense? Okay, that's very important. I like tracking annual contract value. That doesn't mean you talk to your customers in this language, just for your own metrics. If you want to bill out monthly, then bill out monthly. But internally, I like using the annual contract. And then this always, and I don't want to spend much time on this because some of you are going to be shocked by this, but I like having reasonable goals for salespeople because this compounds upon itself. A lot of people say, well, 20% of our revenue should be RMR, so your goal is 20% of your quota this year should be RMR. But RMR is year over year over year. So the point is if you can get them to do 6% of their total quota, guess what? That 6% is going to be around next year, and they do another 6%, then another 6%, right? So I just see a lot of salespeople that are disincentivized by July 15th because their RMR goal is just so unreasonable. So just think about that for a second. If your total recurring revenue goal should be 20%, if you wanted 20% of your, or 30% of your overall revenue, whatever you want it to be, that doesn't mean your salespeople need to have that number for their quota. Okay. Tracking and adjusting. All right, let's go to Slido, 427173. How often do you meet with your salespeople to review their annual goals throughout the year? Not a pipeline discussion. Not saying, so you got another, $140,000 for this quarter. What are you going to close with that? No. I mean, looking at their annual goals. $27, what do we got here? We got about 40 in here? Let's get it up to 30. We get 30 people to vote, I'll stop. And if not, I'll stay here till 5 o'clock with you guys. Just go to slido.com. One more, fantastic. All right, good job, everybody. So it looks like monthly you meet with them about their annual goal. By the way, if that's true, that's great. It's great if you do it monthly and you're talking to them about their annual goals and where they are. My recommendation is, well, we'll talk about it in a second, but monthly is fantastic. A lot of organizations, though, they meet with them on January 5th and again on December 12th, right before the Christmas party. That's pretty much it. So what we want to do is make sure that this is something that you're buying into and they know you're buying into it. Make it fast, make it easy, make it enjoyable. I don't need to put this bullet point on there, but you know what? I need to put this bullet point on there. Just fast. There's a manufacturer that all of you know, and I was doing training, and what they would do is they would fly me to wherever they were doing their quarterly business reviews, and what they would do is they would bring all of they had regional sales directors underneath them, it was a manufacturer, video company, regional sales manager. They bring all the regional sales directors, there were probably, 16 of them for US and Canada, and then their VP would be, every single quarter, every quarter, I promise you, wherever they brought me, Atlanta, Dallas, I was here in Dallas, Orlando, wherever it was, my part was 2 to 4 hours late. So I would just plan accordingly. You know why? Because all they did was beat them up for 2 to 4 hours longer than they planned to. It was miserable. They hated it. So guess what? I could have gotten them up the stretch for 4 hours. It wouldn't have made a difference. It was a horrible thing. Make it easy, enjoyable. Don't do the weekly call sheets, the weekly update sheets. Come from the controller. Like, here's the data. You're a salesperson. You don't have to collect data for us. Don't adjust the annual goals due to unexpected performance. Now, I think there needs to be some modifications on quarterly and things and on activity, but do not adjust the annual goal. If somebody they have a $2 million goal and they do $2.5 million by June, guess what? You got 6 months of congratulating them. If they have a $2 million goal and they've done $200,000 by June, guess what? You got 6 months of working with somebody. But don't adjust their goal. A goal is not a forecast. A forecast can be adjusted. A forecast should be adjusted. A goal is a target for somebody to hit.
Goal being the quote.
That's right. Do not use short term to catch up or relax for long term. Here's what I mean by that. Situation that Lucas brought up. Let's say that we're through 3 quarters and they've done $1 million. Let's say $1.5 million quota, they've done $800,000. That's a bad example because it's the end of the year. Let's go back to, let's say it's the end of June. So you're through half the year. You got $1.5 million quota. You've only done $400,000. What's that leave? 1.1 million, right? You got 2 quarters left. Don't all of a sudden say, guess what? You got to do $550,000 a quarter now. That doesn't mean you don't still shoot for the annual goal, but the quarterly performance is still the quarterly. What would that be? 375 a quarter to hit 1.5 million. So if they hit 375 this quarter, even though they're behind for the entire year, congratulate them for that quarter. Please. Please. I mentioned dopamine earlier. You want to get your salespeople going, congratulate them for small things. Money is one thing, money's great, but the dopamine that comes out of their brain to keep them going for little things, that's what keeps them going on a daily basis. So do not say, yeah, okay, you did 400,000, that's great. But your first 2 quarters, you were in the toilet, so you're still behind for the year. Okay, that's great, that's awesome, I can't wait to come to work on Wednesday. That's right. Congratulations, you suck. That's exactly it. On the flip side, if somebody is at $2 million, they should still do 375 for the quarter. That's their quarterly number. You're a service business. The way you do great business is by having a consistent input of business, right? They should still be generating that 375. If you're a superstar that has done $2 million already through the first half of the year and has already hit their number, if they don't do 375 the third quarter, sit down with them and say, look, you're a superstar. Love that you're here. But you had a bad quarter. What's going on? Do not use the short term to make up for bad performance or to get lazy on good performance. Make sense? Okay. And then if you do not block off time on your calendar, I started Vector Firm in 2010. And I've been in sales. I have a mechanical engineering degree, and I've been in sales since 1995. And I have used my analytical side of my brain to analyze so much about human behavior and why people buy, why people sell, why salespeople do certain things and don't do other things. And I got to tell you, what I've drawn since the summer of 2019, it's been about 2 years, is this. No matter what we teach, doesn't matter. If it's not in the calendar, it doesn't get done. Get it in your calendar. There are a few things, and when I say a few, I mean like 4 things, 4 principles that I've really just, I stay awake thinking about these things at night. And one of them is just getting the proactive things done. Salespeople don't do the proactive, important things. All they do is respond and react. They need to get things in their calendar. They need to put things in the calendar that are proactive, prospect, professional development, taking care of that number 1 customer, whatever it is, things that people are not screaming for, by getting it in their calendar. Another of those top 4 things is they don't have any leaders. And I'm sorry I just said that because their leaders are sitting there in the room. These guys need bosses. These guys need coaches. These guys and ladies, they need leaders to hold them accountable, to coach them, to lead them, and just let them know that we're going to get together once a month, once a week, and we're going to talk about your annual goals. And a lot of our organizations are just too small to have that type of a structure. Get that structure in place. I'm not talking about every day. But they need, Matt and I were talking this morning over breakfast. You can train salespeople all you want. You can train, because that's all we do. But if their bosses don't buy in, they will not do anything that we teach them. So block it off on your calendar and get it done. Get it done. They want you to work with them. Okay, tracking and adjusting review periods. I like doing quarterly, monthly, and weekly. Quarterly is this. Hey man, what's your year to date? Let's look through it. Let's look deeply at the last quarter. And then let's calculate the next quarter, regardless of year to date. Regardless of year to date. In order to hit your number, you got to do 375 every quarter. Let's look at your pipeline. Where really are you? Well, I'm probably going to bring in, 450 or so. Okay, so let's look at that. Does that make sense for this quarter? Regardless of year to date. The monthly meetings, once a month. It's much shorter. The quarterly meeting might be an hour. Monthly meeting may be 20 minutes. Where are you quarter to date? Okay, we got to make some corrections. We got to get you to that number for the quarter. So in the short term, you make the corrections and the adjustments, but you don't sacrifice the short term to make a long-term correction. And then finally, weekly stand-ups. How'd you do last week? What you going to do this week? It's 5 minutes. They're called stand-ups because you're not sitting down. Standing up, we're getting things done, and we're moving on. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's what I like doing. I think it works, and I think that I know that they appreciate it. All right, some subjective and fun goals. I like having, I'm telling you, if you've got someone who has struggled, I don't know, maybe they've struggled with, maybe they're a smoker. They've been trying to quit smoking for 25 years. And if you can give them a goal, I'm not saying incentivize them. I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to do, but hey, here's part of your goals for the year. You're going to stop smoking. Because that's what, or have them bring you the goal. I want you to help me stop smoking. Okay, now I got a team helping me stop smoking. And if all of a sudden they stop smoking, you think they're ever going to find a new job? You think they're ever going to leave you guys? Fun and personal goals. It adds pleasure, it adds balance. Have a separate list. You don't want to have it as part of their, separate, here are 2 to 3 personal things we want you to do. Some ideas, it could be things, secure appointment at a big whale. Like these don't have to be just personal, they're just fun, right? Here's some of my fun and personal. That big, huge organization that I've been chasing for 8 years? By gosh, this year I'm going to get an appointment there. That's one of the goals. Just an appointment, that's it. Maybe I'll become a competent Toastmaster. You've been talking about joining Toastmasters for the last 10 years. You want to improve on your public speaking, but you haven't done anything. How about this? A goal by the end of the year is you're going to join Toastmasters and you're going to become certified as a competent Toastmaster. And you're going to shift that account that has to be in the cloud. They've got 14 locations and like 3 door entries at each location. They should be in the cloud. These are the types of goals that are fun, they're different, they're personal. You can throw you're going to stop smoking, you're going to lose 10 pounds, whatever they want to do. Again, separate list. The bank doesn't need to see this list. Here's some examples that I have for myself. I always have a travel. Now, let's forget about the last 2 years, but my travel goal is less than 60 days. That's on my company's core goals every year. Actually, it started at 80, now it's down to 60. Oh, Gator 100, I left that on there. So I'm a University of Florida graduate, and there's a thing called Gator 100. I made that a goal. Gator 100 is the 100 fastest growing businesses that are owned by Florida graduates. And in 2018, Vector Firm was number 93. So it was cool. And visit 5 new baseball. I'm a baseball geek. I love minor league parks as well as major league parks. So these are things that are like our personal. One of the personal goals we've already set for next year is that are fun is that the 3 of us, the 3 core people in Vector Firm, we're going to have a strategy meeting in Cincinnati for opening day for the Reds. It's got nothing to do with us being Reds fans. We're just big baseball fans, and none of us have been to that stadium. So we're going to go to Cincinnati and have a strategy meeting there. That's our goal. We're going to make sure we do it. All right, action plan. Here's what I want you all to do. Because if you don't, you won't. You're just not going to do anything. If you enjoyed this, you're going to say, hey, that was a pretty good speech, man, I'm going to do that. But you got to go home and do something. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to define 3 metrics that matter. It can be the ones we talked about. It can be ones that you define on your own. And simply calculate the right goals for each of your salespeople. If you can do that between now, let's say this week's kind of a wash. You do some thinking on the way home. But by next Friday, you don't have to have a fancy spreadsheet. You could probably find the data real easily and determine what those ratios are. All right. We're actually early, Lucas. What do you think of that? Huh? We're 7 minutes early. So what I'm thinking about is just telling you some personal stories of how good of an athlete I was in high school for 7 minutes. If you like this material and you're interested in learning more, we have something called the Vector Firm Academy. It's a subscription model for salespeople. It's sales training. And just go to vectorfirmacademy.com. If you are interested in joining, we have a special coupon called ESA. It will get you 10% off. Give you an idea what the pricing is. The pricing is $48 per month per person, at the most. When you get more people, you got 4 people, it goes down to 44 and 40 and 36. But whatever it is, your ESA coupon will get you 10% off forever. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good job. Lunch, 12:15. So lunch is right now.